Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Seal DeGuglielmo. My guest on the podcast today is Emily Marshall. She owns Emily Marshall Custom Sewing in Santa Rosa, California. Her one-person workroom took shape in 2014 when her youngest went to preschool. She offered sewing as a service on Craigslist. That started her off on a path that she's never imagined. Sewing mostly at night, anything and everything from dog collars, zebra skin into rugs, sails for sailboats, and a blackout lining for, of all things, a circus tent. And then in 2017, she enrolled in fashion studies night classes at the local junior college to connect with other sewers and to learn pattern making and draping skills that she still uses today making slipcovers. Emily started offering after-school hand sewing classes at her local elementary schools in 2019. Teaching children from 4 to 14 years old has been the most rewarding part of her career yet, and we will talk about that today. Over the years, as her kids grew up, she has grown her business. Emily has always loved sewing and being creative. She also loves the flexible schedule that owning her own business has provided while raising her kids. These days, when Emily's not in her workroom, she's exploring the great outdoors or cheering on her two teenagers playing soccer and volleyball. This was a really fun conversation with Emily. I had met her at the Custom Workroom Conference a few years ago, and then I got to spend some one-on-one time with her at the Slipcover Summit in Tryon, North Carolina, that Susan Woodcock sponsored through Workroom Tech. When she was explaining to me how her teaching worked and what she did with the kids, I just absolutely loved the idea, and I knew I wanted to talk more with her about it. So I really hope that you enjoy hearing Emily's story today. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Seal. It's so good to be here.
And it's always a little bit of a challenge when we live in different time zones to kind of get it worked out, but I keep thinking it's much earlier in the morning for you, but I've gotten a couple things done before we got started. So it's a good start to my day. I hope it is to yours.
Perfect. I didn't want to have to be anxious about it any longer.
Good. Then we started your day with some anxiety. Just what we all need.
I know. I usually hide in my workroom where nobody sees me. And so now I'm like projecting myself on the,
there we go.
Community.
So I would love for you to start by telling us a little bit about who you are, introduce yourself to us, and a little bit about your life, where you live, and a little bit about your business.
Yeah, I'm Emily Marshall, and I have my workroom in Santa Rosa, California, which is just about an hour north of San Francisco.
Okay.
And I grew up actually about 5 hours north of here. So the state's pretty big. So I was at the top of California. And so, yeah, I grew up in a relatively small town, had like a homestead, 10 acres and a farmhouse and animals. And yeah, that definitely shaped me to be, I can do that. If my parents had sheep, they had bees, they had, apple orchard, that definitely shaped I am being so rural and just doing it. But yeah, in Santa Rosa, I moved down here in 2005, about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, I love it. The community is pretty, it's wine country. So you get lots of people visiting here to do that, but lots of really nice people. Yeah, it's a great community to be in.
Okay.
And so my workroom is pretty much, it's part-time, I would say. I have two teenage kids, 15 and 16. She turned 16. And so I'm busy with them. Mm-hmm. And then I work, and I also have nephews. And so I had them around me for a long time. And I work I'd say about 30 hours a week in my workroum.
Okay. That's only part of your business though. Your work. Okay.
Yeah. And that's all retail. So I do all to, my own clients contact me. I've worked with a few designers, but that's
What do you do mostly in your business? Do you have any particular products that you do more of, or?
Now I try to do cushions and covers. So, you go through the transitions of business cards. So I had the ones that was everything, and then I did a little bit less, and now I've done a lot less. So now I just try to do slip covers instead of upholstery, and lots of outdoor cushions, lots of banquettes and those kind of cushions, and even outdoor covers. So like for barbecues, a lot of outdoor living here. So I
saw that on your website. That's very intriguing to me.
They're big. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of those and still do. Bocce ball court covers, outdoor ping pong cover, just random covers. I feel
Yeah.
like. Um, that's wine country though. It's a lot of outdoor. We're year round outside. Yeah, I guess that's what I focus on now, but it started out very different.
Okay. So you and I had the opportunity to meet at the Slipcover Summit, which was in early November in Tryon, that Susan Woodcock hosted from Workroom Tech. And it was fascinating to me, the different types of, I don't even want to say furniture, but the different types of things people were slip covering, and
sure.
how the different methods that we were all being taught could be used for different things. And when I was looking at your website, I was like, yeah, they're slip covers, all right, but they're not we're not doing ruffled skirts at the bottom of a love seat. We are covering large pieces. I mean, you're doing other types of furniture too, but I just saw so many of them on your website. I'm like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, where to put the zipper and how to put they want the garbage can to be accessible in the winter. So you have to put a zipper around the garbage can so it can drawer open, or the refrigerator to be able to open that. Like they want it Velcroed, but they also want it to be, water resistant. And so, yeah. But it's very much like slip covering. And I took some classes at the junior college for draping and pattern making. And I feel like, it's the same skills. You're just, draping on something different. It's really
sharper corners.
Yeah, a lot of sharper corners. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the ease. You need to have ease. You can't make it fit perfectly because how will, Yeah. Yeah.
And the nice thing is the difference between that and sewing clothing is that that the object that you are covering does not complain that they just gained weight.
Yeah. Or the fabric drapes differently. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this, Emily?
Sewing forever, but my business I started in 2014. Yeah, I was trying to think how I started. I think I was at a fabric store and I bumped into somebody, how you do at fabric stores. They were trying to buy fabric and I gave them a little advice. And then I'm like, how are you going to sew that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I could sew that for you. And then I dropped it off at their business a few days later and I was like, I could do this. So that might have been my first glimpse at it. But yeah, then came a Craigslist ad. I posted my Craigslist ad saying I could make I thought I could do cute little party favor stuff for kids because I had young kids at the time. But yeah, no, I made sailboat cushions and sails. I just did anything anybody asked me to. And that was really random. But I just needed money. I thought that sounded like anything people asked me. I can make that. There's videos online, and I wasn't afraid to mess up because eventually I'll figure it out. So yeah,
I love that because I feel like it's really a necessary part of the personality or the persona of the people who are in this industry is that most of us say, oh, I can do that. We may have no idea how. And figure out how to get to that.
Yeah.
But it still amazes me what some of us have said yes to. Yeah. And it's one thing to say yes to party favors. It's another thing to say yes to a sale and the amount of yardage and the weight of things. So when you started out, did you have an industrial sewing machine?
Nope. I had a cute little brother from Costco I had gotten a long time ago. And I had on my dinner table, I had all these, and a lot of I did at first was repairs. So people would say, oh, I have this canvas for my sailboat. Could you repair it? And I'm like, oh, sure. I could repair anything. I love repairing and restoring. Oh my gosh, it was covered in mold, mildew, bird poop. It was, and I would have on my dinner table with my little home machine. It was so silly. So silly. I upgraded. I watched a lot of Sailrite videos. They were amazing for my educational process. So I bought, I did the Kool-Aid there and I got a walking foot machine, a portable machine. And that was great. That was really upgraded it. Still on the dinner table in the middle of my little condo. But yeah, I did that and that was a good upgrade. And then actually a friend moved to Hong Kong. And so she's like, oh, I have this Juki, you should take it. And I was like, oh no, I'm not that kind of business. She's like, no, you need to take this. And so that changed. Again, I wasn't expecting it, but I moved my whole workroom from my kitchen table to my little 1-car garage, which, I wasn't planning on, being a business. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll take over the garage with the kids' toys. But that was huge. That was a good change for me. And it introduced me to Jukies, which it wasn't the right kind of Juki for our industry. It's a little feed stitch needle feed machine. So it's good for production work, which she did, but not right for long cushions when the top is shorter than the bottom by the end of it and the piping's all wonky. And it was what I used. I didn't know any better.
Right.
Yeah, I used it forever. I mean, I didn't get a walking foot machine for like 6 years into my business, like so long.
And what happened when you got one?
That was life changing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I did this, lining for a circus tent once, a blackout lining. It was showing through light. So I said, I can do that. Huge circus tent, like massive. So we did a whole blackout lining with my walking foot from the Sailrite, which is loud and slow and you have to wind your own bobbins. And yeah. And then the next time I did it, when they stored it improperly, it got moldy. I made it again. I thought, I am buying my walking foot machine. And that was life changing. Yeah. Everything changed. I use other machines randomly, but that is the machine forever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Whenever you're doing anything, I mean, I have a straight stitch industrial machine and it's great for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But my walking foot is like for pillows, for cushions, for heavy fabrics. It's just amazing what a difference that makes.
So good. And it even like resets when you do it wrong. The button pops up and you can fix it yourself and you don't, it's really good to me.
So you started out with, I could make money at this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing a little bit more, and you're moving machines into your garage. At what point did you say, okay, this is how I'm going to make money and I am going to make it a business? What shifts did you make and how did you get to that point?
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I found out there was an industry, that I was in an industry, I listened to your podcast. I was driving and I searched sewing and I heard your podcast and I was like, oh my gosh, you were talking about the CWC for 2017. And I was like, what? So that's when and then I went to the CWC in 2018 in Spartanburg. Mm-hmm. And that was like life changing. It was when you feel like, I don't know, it's a real thing and you can charge appropriately for it. So not only is it just making, extra money to pay the bills, but it was an actual job. And I compared myself at that point. I think maybe that's when I thought of myself more like a plumber or electrician, or I am a real trades person who can charge like I'm special. Not anyone can do this. Where that's when you're raised in a home sewing environment, lots of people could do that. That wasn't a special skill.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's interesting because you said that growing up that way shaped who you are. And I think that for a lot of us who learned these skills, because they are learned skills, and I did not have handy parents. I mean, we joked so much about my mom buying stock and Band-Aid when my dad retired because he was not a handy guy. And my mom could barely sew on a button.
Yeah.
But we still took care of things ourselves in our house. Maybe not so well, but we did take care of them. But you do sort of have that idea of, okay, I can do this. So then you think everybody can, and you don't recognize that you have spent years and years honing your skills, and you have an ability that, in fact, not everyone does have.
Totally. And I feel like in California, there's so few of us that I know out here that do this. It's just, so.
Fantastic. I love that. Okay, so you've moved out into your garage and you're now pursuing more business. How did you start to grow the business? How did you get your name out there?
I believe in manifesting things. So I knew I had more time in my life. And so I just, said, I wonder if I'll get more work. I wonder if people will call me. And then that just happens. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I had more free time. I did a lot with the kids, through the day, but at night I worked every night pretty much sewing. There wasn't a lot of people who do this, especially I was still advertising on Craigslist probably for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then the foam store in town that used to sell foam, they heard about me. So they would refer really great clients to me.
Nice.
That already had foam picked out. And they kind of screened them for, price point, because if you can buy foam from a local foam store, you can probably have Emily sew your cushions.
Okay.
And then, and my husband at the time, he works at a kind of a fancy golf club. And so lots of those members, honestly, I had so much business from those, wonderful members who needed cushions and covers, and they didn't know anybody who could do that. So it was very word of mouth. I didn't actually make a website until 2021, maybe, when the foam store closed. And I thought, shoot, who will give me those referrals? I should be searchable. And then I thought I could also supply foam if they were closing. So things that happened just naturally. I didn't really want to sell foam. I didn't make. But when I did start selling foam, that changed my whole business. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing. It changed, instead of working every hour to get paid, you would get paid for selling a product that people need. And I wasn't even storing it. I would order, cut to size from my foam supplier. And yeah, I don't know why I waited so long, but it was nice. So I made a website and people could find me on the internet. And I think I put a Yelp thing out there, not paid for it, but which I didn't find to be very helpful, actually. Yelp was not a friend. Lots of useless leads. Oh. People just don't know. So then you really are very thankful for the good people you have, because you realize, oh my gosh, I never have to quote and then not get the quote accepted. With Yelp, it was so many wasted hours quoting. And I thought, this is not what I should be doing. But.
Okay. Emily, did you have any trouble figuring out your pricing in the beginning? Because you were accustomed to doing this for yourself and figuring things out on yourself. And like you said, putting yourself in the same category as a plumber or a tradesperson means that your prices should be worth something, but we don't always follow through there. So.
Well, yeah. And I started basically teaching myself how to sew cushions. I mean, I had sewn other things, but I hadn't cushions before. And so I figured, how much time is your educational time, right? I had done a 4-year university degree I wasn't using at all. And so like, well, I paid for that. Like, how much do I charge my clients to pay for my education? So that was tricky. Joining the Facebook groups were amazing. All the different like workroom groups and upholstery groups helped with my pricing, because then you could kind of see the different realm there. But I don't know, I think of the Sandra Bullock in the movie where she's like, the time away from her kids is her, that's her money. And I often say that little spiel in my head being like, if what I'm sewing for this client isn't worth me being away from my kids, I am not doing it. So I either charge more or stop doing it. So that little thing runs in my head with the plumbers, electricians, and Sandra Bullock.
I love that. I love that combination. Yeah. I think we've come such a long way in the last 10 or 15 years in terms of valuing ourselves and our abilities. But I agree. There were so many times where I felt like I was missing out on family time so that I could get a job finished. And I often said to myself, I'm available to my kids at a time when I might not have been if I had had a more traditional job or answered to a boss. If something was going on at school and I wanted to participate, I could. And it meant that I was available. But yes, it also meant I was working a lot of nights and sometimes a lot later into the night than I would have liked to. But you're right. There were times when if I had thought about it with that attitude of, is this worth being away from my kids? The answer would have been no. Not for what I was charging at the time. No. Yeah. So I'm glad you had that mindset pretty early on.
Yeah. But I still struggle with it. I feel like even today I have my little notes to remind myself, and I'm like, oh no, this one I'll charge a different. No, Emily, you wrote this down to remind yourself this is what you're charging for this now. Like, it's constant. It's not like I'm figured that out.
Right. I also think that I think there's this perception that when our kids are little, we need to be more available to them. And I think as teenagers, just being close by and just knowing that we're around has a big impact on them. And it's true. Not that they need you more, they need you differently.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like I'm getting close to the end. Like, they're going to start like driving and I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss that. Like, what if they don't invite me to do that again? Like, and it's like, it's that next, it's funny. You think, I'm almost done. And they're like, wait, I'm almost done. So yeah, it's tricky, but it's good. I love my flexible schedule. I love it.
I always had that same attitude. Like, as my girls would like go into a new phase, I would always be excited for them at first and then go, oh wait, but that means we're done with, whatever the cute little thing was, until they were teenagers. And then it was fascinating to me to watch them gain their independence. I mean, bittersweet, of course,
but no, it's great.
But watching them become the human beings they were meant to be was fascinating. But also, yeah, sometimes it was really hard to let go. But you're right. I would often say, they still want me to drive them places. They still want me to whatever it was. So I'll take it. Yeah.
I'll take it. Yes.
So when did you decide to start offering teaching as part of your offerings, and how did that come about?
I know, right? Every time it's somebody else asks me and I have trouble saying no, I'm like, well, that sounds fun to try. I'll try most anything once. Honestly,
Okay.
I might learn after that. But no, so I did a lot of volunteering with our enrichment program at school for the kids. And so someone asked me if I could do a class, and I was like, oh yeah. And so it was machines. We did machines, and it was for a different business. They paid me to do that. And I did it for one session, and that was never going to happen again that way. But I already knew the administration. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, not doing that again, but could I do my own program? And they had known me for, gosh, at that time, probably 6 years with my kids going through there and me volunteering. So they were totally excited about it. So that was like an in that I didn't have to sell myself. And I started doing hand sewing, and I thought that would be great for kids. Anybody could do it. You didn't have to have any special equipment. It wasn't dangerous at all.
Right.
So I started in 2018 and then did that for a year and a bit. And then COVID happened. So I remember refunding some money when COVID happened. And then I would have done it more before then too. I just did a little bit, but my kids were little still. So I went available after school. So after COVID, my kids were much older and they did not need as many rides. They could both walk home from school at that point. Still so weird for me as a, really available parent to be like, okay, guys, walk home and don't call me for this 1 hour because I will not be able to help in any way. But it also helped that I had some family move closer to me then. So, kind of go into place to make it all happen. But now I teach 5 days a week after school for 2 different school districts for about 9 different schools. Depends on the school, but from kindergarten or even pre-K to, which is like 4-year-olds, to 6th grade. So like a 13-year-old.
Yeah, that's a big age difference.
It is, yeah.
Difference in motor skills as well as other abilities.
Yeah, attention, everything. Yeah. It's so great though. Like I love it. I just think it's the best. Because I like to change. I like change. I love change actually. So it was this whole different realm I could adventure in. I could do my workroom for, 5 hours in the morning, and then I go check into my teaching situation, and then I hang out with my kids for the, drive them to sport practices and do all that stuff that you do. And then maybe a couple more hours at night. But that's kind of my day. And the teaching, I don't know. It's funny how much you learn from it, right? The me in the beginning to me now, and like the projects I bring, I have tubs. I carry tubs with me, and it's all very portable. And just the kids, they light up. They like, Miss Emily, are you here today? Oh, it's sewing day today. Oh my gosh. I'm like, there's jumping sometimes.
I love it.
Like if you need your bucket filled, you can go teach an after school sewing class. Anybody can do it if you don't mind children and you love showing this. I don't know how I would have survived high school if I didn't have sewing as like an outlet.
Right.
And people have phones, of course we know that, but we also know from COVID, people picked up lots of, handiwork crafts and skills and painting again and crocheting and all. So not that we need another COVID, but we need people to lean back into those, mental health breaks and all that. Right. So I bring it with me all the time. I am constantly sharing sewing at soccer games, volleyball games. Anywhere I'm at, I have something with me, and I'm handing it to someone to take home with them to work on because I'm like, oh, yeah, do you want to do this too? I have a weaving circle. Make a friendship bracelet today. I always do. Yeah.
I love that. So you were explaining to me when we were at the Slipcover Summit how you have different projects for the kids to work on. Like you don't go with one thing and all the kids have to work on it. So my first thought was, that's amazing because it allows for different interests and activities. It's also a lot on you because you come with some things prepared ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you're not just walking in there and and starting from scratch. You have things ready to go.
Yeah.
And ready for them to make selections. So how have you developed this curriculum? Because obviously when the kids are jumping up and down, if you're coming in, then they are happy to see you and excited.
Okay. Yeah, trial and error for sure. Yeah, it's been a few years now and so much trial and error. Oh my gosh. I just remember, back in the day, you're like, what was I thinking? Like that was a silly idea. But then you learn it and then you know it now. Like that's how that works. And I remember looking up classes online I could take to teach kids or like curriculums. I looked up some 4-H stuff and it was all mostly sewing machines. And it was the same project for every kid. And I know my kids and I know all their friends and we've done, sewing at birthday parties and stuff and everybody's different. I don't want anyone to leave because in some of the places I teach, technically the after school kids can go play outside. And I take it personally when they choose to go play outside. And I'm like, no. So a lot of them do choose to stay in and I really like it. It's like a challenge. So I know some kids want to weave. And so I bring weaving boards and they make pieces of I tell them we have a loom and they weave fabric and they get to take it home with them. I have weaving circles where you make a friendship bracelet with cardboard and 7 strands of yarn. I have embroidery, which they can draw their own picture and then they outline it with, needle and thread. And then I have pre-cut out felt creatures, animals. So, anything from pumpkin with a jack-o'-lantern face you can make it into, or, lots of whales and birds and stars and hearts, and can embellish it with beads and buttons. Sometimes I bring things like, fluffy fabric for pillows and, that kids would make a pillow every day. If anybody wants to get a kid to start sewing, be like, you can make a pillow and put some fluff. I use lots of my offcuts for my workroom. Kids probably think fluff comes pre-glued in long strips. They're like, this is how like, pillows look. I'm like, yeah.
That's funny.
It's all clean, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've been told in the past I should consider teaching. The problem is I'm not as patient as I may come across. And I'm watching you talk about this and your face is lighting up and you are so excited even just talking about it. And what I'm thinking is, was it difficult for you to bring some of these projects in for the kids to work on with an idea of here are the things they can make? And then kids, being the amazing creatures that they are, look at cut out pumpkins and decide they're going to be kangaroos or whatever they decide they're going to be, and a totally different outcome than maybe you have in mind. Was that ever difficult for you to, hey, go for it, do what you want? Or because I would be like, no, the nose goes here, honey. Like I would be telling them what to do. And I'm watching you and I'm thinking like, they're going to create their own things and you are going to encourage that.
Yeah. I'll never forget the day that it was a kindergartner and she sewed a bat to a ghost. Like she just like all on her own, like I make samples, so they're in my little felt bags, but reluctantly, because some kids take it so literal. And yes, and that's the thing. And so hesitantly I do that. Yeah. But I mean, this little kindergartner, she's just like, and then the other kid's like, wait, you're making a ghost bat? And like, they did it too. And it was the most, and they're kindergartners. They're so I loved it. So I love people making their own things, and I am not Larry. I'm good at copying things. I always, I can make stuff, but I need to see a picture and then I'll make it for you. Yes. I'm just like in my head about it. So I made a couple little random creatures like, that you cut out with scraps. I'm like, oh, let's use the scraps. Not like maybe 3 kids seriously do that. Most kids really like to cut out shapes if they're going to sew a shape. They'll add different buttons or eyes, and they're so creative sometimes with like their little embroidery, the mouth that changes the whole look. Yes. I think it's so... I just don't, and a lot of parents that pick up, oh, I love that you're offering this. I can't sew a button. And like, you said, I'm like, I think everyone can sew a button. I wish you wouldn't say that in front of your children because seriously. But then some kids are like, oh, we learned how to sew, but how do I sew this button on? Or how do I sew a patch on? And I'm like, you just sew the button on. So now I, make sure I'm deliberate in my words saying, oh, we're sewing this heart onto this other heart. That's kind of like a patch. And I use words, and I even buy patches sometimes just to, sew them on the little like felt bags with like shoulder bags, like messenger bags. Yeah. And most of my kids at this point, just the kindergartners are new quite often because so many have been sewing with me for so many years. And that's how the whole, it's, morphed into this like, can we do embroidery today? I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the orange bag. So the big kids go run to the orange bag and grab the embroidery stuff. Or, oh, can we do this like one thing that's from this random like, oh, that's in the blue tote in the back of the cabinet, And so it's kind of morphed into this thing. And then the older kids at one school that have a small enough group normally that I can teach crocheting. So it's fun to do things like that. And I'm always the teacher who, like, if you're working on a project, I'm like, well, just take it home with you. Just put it, make sure you tell your parent. I'm like, no babies, no cats and dogs. Like, needles are not good for babies, cats, and dogs. But tell your parent you have it with you. And I send it home with them because it's super, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that in my life. And I sometimes sense that's a too. I do have a sibling at home. Like, how big's your big sister? Like, can you send her? Oh, your little brother, is he a baby? Can we send him with a bracelet? Like a weaving board. So it's just the more people who do it, the less, weird it will be, I guess. I don't know. It's not weird to me, but
yeah, I agree. And I also think that none of us ever know what's going on in somebody else's life, and especially with children, sometimes there are things going on, and to have something that they're entrusted with that is an opportunity for them to either occupy themselves or express themselves or both, and you as an adult saying to them, well, of course you can take this home, honey, I'll see you next week or whenever they come back again, and the trust that means to them is something that they don't always experience from other adults in their lives. And I think that that's just like so many things with kids. The sewing is only a small part of it. It's the adventure. It's the creativity. I love that they can come to you and say, oh, can we do this today? And it's not you saying, oh no, I'm sorry, today is, needlepoint day, or today is this day. No, you're willing to be flexible with them. And I think that's fantastic.
And I think I see that as a short term, like, what if they don't come back next week? What if the next session they haven't signed up for? What if this is my last day to let them do whatever they imagine they wanted to make that day? So I feel like any of it, because none of it's permanent, right? So I'm like, what if this is, so I don't want to miss the opportunity for them to try that and see that they were able to make that. So,
okay.
And I often say that they're not going to be perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, the first time I made that, of course, it didn't look the good as the second time I made that, like it's going to always look different. And you think I've been doing, I don't know. I'm constant, and I'm not a perfectionist. Never have been, never will be. Okay. My little felt animals look like maybe a kid could have done them, I just don't value perfection in my hobby. So in my work, I do, it looks good. Maybe not perfect, but my work looks good. But for my sewing, for my embroidery, like when I'm on the couch, it just looks how I want it to look. I just have fun doing it. I don't know. I take it apart sometimes I don't. It just, I don't know. I just do it for fun. It's supposed to be fun.
I want to jump in and take a moment to thank the sponsors who make it possible for me to bring you the podcast each week. My sponsors are people in the industry that I have personally had a connection to, purchased from, or used their services. So it makes it really easy for me to tell you about them and the great things that they have to offer. Because I feel so strongly about education in our industry, I'm thrilled that as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library, I can use the resources of the library to help support the podcast. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. Angels Linings would like to invite you to become part of their family. With reputable lining comes exceptional customer service. Trust them with your linings like I do. You get 2 Tootsie Pops with every bolt of lining you receive. For smiles, satisfaction, and a sugar kick all around, call Angels Linings at 1-800-450-9368. The Workroom channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. If you've listened to the podcast, you know how much I've learned from Michelle Williams. And I think most of my guests have mentioned taking at least one of her classes or gotten coaching from her. Her business is Scarlet Thread Consulting. Michelle loves to work with creative business owners to help them understand all aspects of their business and to use their gifts and talents to make it profitable. Michelle is a strategic profitability coach certified in the Profit First methodology, and she can be reached at scarletthreadconsulting.com. I've also mentioned my membership with the WCAA, and I'm now a gold level sponsor, where education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to our members. The Window Covering Association of America is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. I've also been extremely fortunate to be able to work with Merrill Y. Landis Ltd. It's a family-owned and operated custom workroom and product distribution company to the trade with over 70 years of experience. And in addition to their custom work, they offer a wide variety of decorative drapery hardware. They offer stout and flare 21 fabrics. They have Roman shade operating systems and assembly kits. They have motorization and workroom supplies, and they serve both designers and workrooms. And you can check out the MYL Advantage at mylLTD.com. It's so interesting to me because, and I've joked around about how I don't like to do mock-ups and I don't like to just try something. I want everything to have a purpose. And I'm sure years of therapy could reveal why that's a problem for me. But, growing up, there were a lot of us in my family. So you didn't just do things for fun, although I did have hobbies. And once I was babysitting, I had money to spend on things like embroidery thread and hoops and fabric and all that. But the idea, when I started to knit, and I would make mistakes because you do that when you're learning, and I had to unknit something, I didn't really care because I was still knitting. And that was the first time I was like, oh, this isn't really about the finished object for me. This is not that I don't love making things and making gifts for people or for things for myself, but it's really okay because I'm still knitting. At the end of the night, even if I've had to, pull out 16 rows, still knitting and doing something with my hands. And I think that's such a valuable thing to be teaching to kids, but allowing them to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you were saying that when you're doing your hobby, I don't sit still very well. And for me to sit on the couch with my kids, to watch a show, it's hard. Or to sit and watch a whole soccer game or a weekend full of volleyball. I have a lot of trouble. So that's how bringing my hobby with me came to be, is that it would help me sit still.
Yeah. Portable hobbies are really good for the sports and the marching band and all the things that I sat through as a parent.
Yeah. And so that's not going to be perfect at all. It's going to be just a thing that helps you sit still. So I have a lot of crocheted hats I've made. I have a lot of embroidery that's at the back of my drawer, but it helped me sit still and helped me be present and listen really well and still do those things. So I tell the kids that, you can do this in the car. You can do this with your sibling soccer game.
My kids laughed at me because I would miss things in movies because I would be, looking down at my knitting or whatever, but I still was with them and I was still part of the conversation and things like that, because I think that's a big part of the importance of parenting, is being there and hear, like you said, you can still listen while you're doing these things.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, Emily, there is, when I see people teaching sewing to young people, there is a sense of accomplishment, like when they've made a pillow or they've made a handbag. Do you try to have them work towards a finished product as they get a little older so that they can have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much every class is it's an hour for most of the classes, sometimes an hour and a half. And so every project I bring could be done in an hour for sure. And I try to give, 20 minutes left, guys. Hey, if you're working on this, just finish it up. Announcements in class. And most 90% of the time someone brings something home. At least 90. Yeah. For the bigger kids, sometimes they want to make a bigger project. So they'll start a big, and they want to leave it there. They mostly finish because they're small little, they're 4 inches by 3 little felt animals and stuff. And I've tried doing bigger projects and they just really want it done in an hour, which makes me a little sad because, it's not a TV show, but at least they're still doing the reps. I think of it like, soccer practice, like you got to do your drills and at least they get to take something home with them. It's not like soccer practice, you don't take anything home. So no, they finish and they're usually very proud of it. And a lot of times the next day we go over, or the next class, we go over how knots are really important. So that little soft toy they made the first time really quickly with big stitches and very tiny knots. Oh, look how that fell apart. So let's try, the smaller the stitch, the stronger the stitch mentality.
Okay. And so again, a learning opportunity.
It's very thoughtful.
Yeah. You didn't do this wrong. Here's a better way to do it. I love that. You had mentioned like bringing needles home and is it safe? You also mentioned at the summit that you had some really favorite needles that you like to give the kids because, pardon me, that could be a bloody mess with needles and little children. So what kind of needles do you use for the kids?
Yeah, they're Singer tapestry needles. I can give you the link. They're blue tops and yellow tops. They come in a little pack of 6, 3 of each. And they're blunt, yet they're not blunt. And the blue needle I use for like embroidery thread, little balls of the number 5 thread, and they go through really nicely. So that's always embroidery. We use the blue needles, and I love that I can tell the kids, hey, grab a blue needle. I have a piece of foam that they stick all their needles in, a big block of remnant. It looks like a remnant of foam. And I say, hey, grab a blue needle and you grab your thread to do embroidery. And if you're doing a soft toy, a little felt animal, you need to grab a yellow needle and because that goes through the felt better. Because I did a lot of trial and error. The kindergartners sometimes use plastic needles. It's just because it's kind of fun to do that broadcloth type stuff, the really loosely woven stuff with yarn and buttons and beads, and that's fun for them to do. But generally, everyone uses metal needles, and they thread them themselves. They're tricky. But yeah, the needles are the magical thing. And if I didn't have that needle, I don't know how my class would go. So they stopped selling them at my local fabric store. And so I've been kind of hoarding them, worried that my curriculum might completely fall apart if I didn't have those needles anymore. Cause they just they slide through everything and they're not so hard to thread. And they're not sharp. There's no bleeding. Like the only thing people they get hurt is maybe under your nail. Right. But it's still a blunt needle that as we know, sharp needles hurt a lot more.
Yes. There are lots of things you can hurt yourself with under your fingernail that are not needles. So that's not, Yeah.
And I wish I could have the kids cut out their own felt animals. That would be ideal. But to cut through felt nicely, you have to have very sharp scissors. And I cannot have all these kids. Some kids are great. Other kids would just cut their finger. It would be a lot of bloodshed. So, I wish I didn't have to cut the animals. That would be great in my head. And I bring sharp scissors for kids who want to do their own thing. I say, hey, look at the sharp ones. They're in the back of the yellow tub. Just don't leave them in the counter. Put them back in the tub when you're done, that kind of thing.
So that no one else picks them up.
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, no, because those are...
So you mentioned the fact that you start your day in your workroom. Do you feel like you have trouble balancing the two different types of your business, the teaching versus the sewing?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a struggle just being, self-employed, right? Is that you have to motivate yourself to do the things that are, the things you have to do every day. So deadlines help a lot.
Okay.
I don't always set myself up for success there, but I try. But yeah, no, I like doing cushions. I really actually enjoy doing slipcovers and cushions now. So once I get into it, it's good. I put a good audiobook on. I'm an audiobook fan. I listen to a lot of books, music when I'm cutting and thinking, and then straight lines are just lots of books. So that's good. But if I'm not prepared for class, the morning is kind of ruined because you're kind of distracted. And I do try to set myself up for success there, is try to have my ideas in place, my little animals cut up. I'll spend the whole, I spent actually 5 hours this past weekend just cutting up shapes for the next 4 months. Okay. So after that's all done, I don't have to worry about what I'm doing that class, because that ruins your morning if you haven't prepared.
Yeah. So. And especially since they're not allowed to use sharp scissors, that would really ruin things for them.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered quitting doing either part of the business?
No, not really. No, I guess I started doing this for the money, and I just never could really stop. So that's a good motivator.
Yeah.
I've just changed what I've done, right? So the times that I didn't like doing something or I thought I am not good at that, I've just stopped doing it mostly.
Okay.
So yeah, I know, never quit. And I my husband at the time, he worked 70 hours a week. So it's not like I could be employable. No
Right.
one's, oh, let's employ her for like maybe 4 hours today and not at all for 4 days. And, that was not employable. So it just was it was a really amazing thing that I could make my own flexible schedule and how much money I wanted. Like if I needed more money that I just had to say I needed more money for that. So that was, I don't know, I could never go back to the regular real world. I don't know how I would be a horrible employee. I worked for Social Security for 3 years. Yeah, I did a federal job for 3 years and I thought I was good at that. I was a relatively good employee, but I would not be good at that anymore.
I joke around sometimes and say I really could use a boss who like was standing over me and reminding me of what else I had to get done, but I would be a terrible employee at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that I can change as I wanted to change. So I know I was leaned into upholstery for a while, and that was doing a number on my hands. And I just kept talking to people about it, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, I used to do upholstery," or "Oh, look at my hands." And that was like a bragging right. And I was like, "Oh, I don't think I need to have that." So I stopped essentially. And did slipcovers instead. So yeah, I quit doing upholstery, but I would never quit my business because I'll just change. So yeah. And like in my head, I'm like traveling around the United States, like working on people's workrooms for, like as I love traveling. I love going and adventuring and change. I love it all. So I can see making this business whatever I want it to be and never ever having to quit because I just changed it. So
okay. I love that. That's actually one of the best answers I've ever gotten to that question because it's either yes or no. They have considered it and are sticking with it, or no, I just love this so much I would never quit. But that's a great answer. You just change it.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me that you used your website to have people sign up.
Yes.
And how did you develop that? Because that's been brilliant. You said you had to keep track of everything and how to contact people and now everybody just signs up on your website.
It's a game changer. Yeah. It was, kind of like everything that's kind of just made itself happen. I knew that I could have people enroll on my website. I thought that was a thing people could do. And they could even fill out the who's picking me up and do I go to the school care afterwards or, all the different, like, I have a ton of questions. And then also the signature saying, hey, Emily's not responsible, liable,
right,
non-refundable, click that box. So, I knew it was possible, but I kept putting it off because I'm not a computer person at all. Like literally, I never used tech ever. Okay. So I made my website though, because Squarespace is very helpful. So I made it back in COVID. And then it was August of this year, like a day before I put the flyer out. I'm like, I have to do it. I'm a deadline girl. So I made it and it's life changing. I used to spend hours every enrollment and it always seems like I was gone. I would I'm flying to Mexico and I'm sending out my enrollment. And so then all these people want to hear back that they're in the class. They want to be reassured that they made it into the class. They want to send the flyers, they have questions, and I'd be like, I'm not here. So now it's like all automatic. I can send it out from anywhere I am. I actually can post it early, so that way I don't have to wait for the school. I don't have to be like at the mercy of the school sending the flyer out with the kids. And then a nice Excel spreadsheet afterwards with all the name and details, and I can. It's a game changer, and didn't cost me anything more than the website did. And anytime I got, confused, and even now I'm like, how do I change that automatic letter that sends out when they enroll that has like what classroom they're walking to and kind of, my spiel, that used to have to be manual like 80 times. I do like 160 emails minimum every 6 weeks. It was horrible. So now it's all automatic. And the payments collected instead of me checking, did they Venmo me yet? Did they Venmo me yet? Now Squarespace sends me a deposit to my account directly. It's funny how you just, you put up with a lot, like the workroom too, right? Yeah. You know there's a better way of doing that, but you just keep doing it the same way because it will take you time to learn. Okay, I should have done this at least a year ago because it's just so much more consistent too. Then the people know, we're out of stock. And because I'd let more kids enroll in my classes. And because I'm horrible at saying no. Oh, I'm going to have 30 students in my sewing class. Okay. I don't want to tell Timothy he can't be in my sewing class. So sure. Now it's like cut off, and I don't have to,
Right.
it's like, it's a lot better for me. And for the
Yes.
kids in class, they get more attention because there's less kids in there. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing to me when I do figure some technology out, how much it saves my life. But
Mhm.
I was having this conversation with my daughter recently. There was someone had asked me to do something for them. And I kept putting it off because I was sure it was going to take a really long time. And then I was embarrassed because
Yeah.
I don't say no easily. And it was a favor from someone who has done many favors for me. So I sat down the one day, I was like, I am not getting up until this is done. Well, 10 minutes later, I was done. And
Yep.
I was furious with myself, embarrassed that I waited so long, and like done. Now
Yep.
I no longer had this hanging over my head, but there was also a benefit to me on the side. And I'm like, I have got to like post this somewhere or put a post-it note on my computer to remind me. It's probably only going to take 10 minutes. Just do it and get it done. Yeah. Yeah, but we get stuck in our ways and we don't do that.
I know. I always think, well, at least I eventually
Yes.
lined up.
That was a show when my girls were growing up, Amanda Bynes, and that was one of the words. It was in a show that eventually,
Mhm.
eventually I will get it done. All right.
Yep.
So we joked around about not being employable. If you weren't doing this, what else would you be doing?
I don't know. It could be anything, Seal. I don't know. I don't know. You never know. I could work at a zoo. I don't know. I
Okay.
do all weird. I mean, people, I did not see this in my future. I didn't know what I was to do in my future when I was, what was I going to do when I grew up? I thought I might be a teacher. Actually, I did think that for a while. But I can't spell. And so I thought that would never work. I could never write on a whiteboard ever.
Mhm.
And I speak a little fast, some people say. And that's hard for children to understand, apparently. So yeah, I thought never be a teacher. Well, there you go.
There you go.
I don't know. I love trying new things. I love new experiences. I think the fact that I've stuck with this for 10 years because it can change is the best thing really for me. Cause yeah, I like to mix things up. So I don't know. I always wanted to have like a career, but I couldn't imagine doing a career for a long time. So this is kind of a good fit actually. So
Okay.
I don't know. I love trying new things though.
I love that about you. What have been some of your biggest challenges so far, Emily?
Biggest challenges. Well, like we talked about, the pricing was hard for me just to like put a value on my work. Yeah. Balancing the time with the kids, it's so easy because I'm right here. Like, oh, can we get a ride? Oh, can we do this? Can we go on this, adventure? And being like, well, yeah, but we have to work till like 2 a.m. That's a challenge for me. Yeah, that would be, those are the hard ones for me.
Okay. What is your definition of success?
I know I thought about this one too. Yeah, I guess financial stability, that I'm not, everything I do is driven by money. That's success, like a financial success. Having the balance with my family and my friends, like that is success, so that I could do those things and not feel that stress.
Okay.
No, I think that's, the financial and emotional balance of getting to do the things I choose to do. That's success. Having choice in my life.
I like that.
And I think you have to have that financially. You can't just be like, oh, money doesn't matter. Well, it does certainly matter. I know that some of the most stress I get is when I don't think I can do that financially that I really think is important to me. And so having that off my list of things to worry about is success. And then having, friends and family at a spot where I can do that with them. Yeah, I don't know. Does that work?
I like that. I think that's a great definition.
Yeah.
What's been the greatest success so far in your business?
I don't know. I don't know. There's one thing I could say. Being able to financially support myself is a big success. That's a big deal.
Great.
Yeah, that's really new.
Yeah.
That was the last a couple of years that I learned I could sell foam and sell fabric for the full markup. That was a big deal in my life. And then the teaching supplemented that, and that I was able to do it on my own was a pretty big financial success. Yeah,
I agree. We've talked, a couple people and I've talked recently about the fact that there's very often a difference in the mindset of people who are the sole source of income for their family in this business. And it's not a hobby and it's not a jobby, and they need to make money. and they're not going to fool around about it. And for those of us who it was a second income, I think it's easier to not push yourself sometimes, whether it's to get the money you deserve for the work you did or feeling adequate. But it is a business. And as you said, being able to work hard, be paid for it, but then not have to stress over it. And when you are outside of your business, and especially as a mom of teenage kids, you want to be able to say yes to an adventure or yes to the occasional purchase that seems frivolous. You want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was really fortunate in the beginning of my business. I had the financial stability of my husband at the time. And I could go at the pace I wanted to and have time with my kids. And I was able to, that was a much easier balance because what I was making was like the extra.
Yeah.
And I was supported in that. And that was like a lot less scary to like listen to, find more YouTube videos about how to sew that, angled cushion cut.
Right.
That was great that I had that time and growth and support for that. But the fact that I could grow into this and make it my own on my own one person shop, not having to get bigger. I just needed to, sell myself in a different way. I feel like I actually sometimes work less now than I used to work. Okay. I just value myself better. And I have all the foam and fabric and the teaching. The teaching is certainly lovely too. But that took a long time to learn all that though, right?
Right.
Well, I hope people who want to start their own business will just go for it and be nice because be nice to yourselves because it's hard to start a new business and anything. And your story is different than someone else's story. Yep. And I don't know. Yeah, it's good though. It was worth it. The hard stuff for sure.
So I'm curious, you said you're not a perfectionist in the hobby end of it. You obviously are very careful about what you do at work. How do you handle mistakes or failures?
I'm usually pretty nice to myself. I have a relatively nice inner dialogue. I, like to say nice things to myself. It doesn't do much use to be mean. So yeah, I'm usually just thankful that like there's still fabric available or, I actually have a buffer, I have an extra 5 days so I could have that fabric shipped in time. I don't love when a client catches a mistake. That has only happened rarely, but gosh, that's what makes us
feel good.
It doesn't feel good. Although I don't know who said it, but something about there's no, fabric emergencies. That helps, and I do think that when I am like a little bit beating myself up, like, oh, why did you not check that before you gave that to that person? But usually it's fine. So, I don't know. It's just, there's not an emergency. It really isn't. And if I think it's going to be an emergency, I will get that done way in advance and give it to them and they can check it out. That way, if there's any issues, and I say that, hey, I don't expect any issues with this, but let me know if there's any, let me know if there's anything. Yeah. I just say it because then I said it. I said the scary thing because I still worry because people give me their measurements regularly and I don't always think I made the mistake, but if they thought they measured it right and they did not, I don't know. I want to put it out there that let me know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I do think we've talked many times on the podcast about communication being important. And I think that the way you're presenting it is a great way to think about it. Like, if there's an issue, let me know. It doesn't mean it's my fault. It doesn't mean it's your fault, but we can take care of it. Whatever it is, it can be fixed.
Yeah.
So you mentioned listening to books on tape. Do you like business books or have you read any business books that impact you? And that's okay. Not everybody likes them. I just like to ask the question.
No, people do read a lot of them, but no, no. None. Okay. I bought a few. I like for nonfiction. I sometimes like to refer back to it. So I have a couple on my shelf that, they just sit there. I really totally value the Facebook forums. Okay. That is my real reading. I'll dive pretty deep sometimes when I have a question or a concern, or I'll just search the forums for workrooms, and I find so much good things from my coworkers. I call them my coworkers.
I love that.
Post on Facebook. I don't post very much at all, if at all. But I value everyone's words about their businesses, about their workrooms, about their clients, about all that. I really value that reading, I guess, the most.
And I know education is important to you because we were at the summit together. Have you taken any other classes? And you went to CWC.
So I did do the junior college classes back, the fashion classes at the junior college in my town, which is so funny because, I just wanted to hang out with people who sewed, and there was no technical colleges or anything that would work nearby. So I valued that education, even though I didn't really know how that would work. I do like sewing clothing for myself, not for clients ever. Well, there was a couple of times, but I learned my lesson. But I love sewing clothes for myself. And yeah, so I did that. That was good. But I kind of, when I was there, I was thinking more about being a teacher, listening a lot. I was thinking, oh, could I do this? Could I teach? And that was well before I started teaching kids. And I thought that would, I don't know, I would love to, I just feel like other adults would love to learn the trade, at least do it. But there's just zero here where I'm located. But that's TBD. This is more this is my thing right now. I don't. I like.
And you've made changes before, so you could make changes again.
Yep.
All right. So you did mention you're not a tech girl, so I won't ask you about technology. But what 3 business items could you not live without?
Oh yes. Like things in my workroom, right? Or things. Let's see. 3 business. Sorry. Oh, business items. So I'm a calendar. I am horribly dysfunctional with my schedule. Okay. It's bad. So I love that my phone, I can put my items in my phone and have an alarm go off 30 minutes before. Because anywhere in Santa Rosa, if I hear that alarm go off, I can be back in my workroom. Because I early and I could be, running an errand. I could be at a client's house measuring. I could be anywhere. And I look, but sometimes I miss it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. My calendar is super important to me. Yeah. For business, and then my calendar is important. My MacBook, I use that for all my enrollment and my emails with clients. And and I still do all my booking and stuff with my notepad, spiral notepad. I keep thinking I'll take these classes and use QuickBooks, but I've still never gone on to QuickBooks in my whole life.
If it's working for you. Emily, do you do any sewing for pleasure?
Yeah. So clothing, I like clothing. Okay. I like, because I'm tall. And so finding a cute little jumpsuit that fits me would be very short. And pants would be too short. And I love making dresses that are not, super short. Right. And then jackets are fun too. I don't know. I do like sewing. I like sewing clothes. But like nowadays, this is a very busy time, it seems like. But yeah, I have a lot of clothes that I've made that I enjoy.
In your business, what is your favorite thing to make?
Oh, favorite thing to make. Well, I like to make cushions because I feel like it pays the bills. Really, I do. I also lean into a good production job. I've done a lot of production work somehow, making like 700 of something or 200 of something. And sometimes I lean into that for like an audiobook. I listen to a whole series. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it forever. That would not be my life goal there. Right. Sometimes it's just like, you just lean in. You're like, okay, 500, it's a production line. I don't know. That's kind of fun. And there's a time and a place for that, right?
That's so funny because I am not a production sewer. I made 300 pillows for someone once, and it was the longest. I can't even tell you how long it took me. She gave them to me in bits and spurts, but I never wanted to see another pillow like that again as long as I lived. That was painful for me the entire time. And it paid me well.
It paid you well. That's the thing, right? That balance and like I think that it could turn my brain off, right? So for that month, that's all I had to think about. I didn't have to think about even responding to emails and any sort of urgency. Right. A break. I guess that's, so I like that on occasion.
That's a good mindset. If I ever have to do production sewing again, I'm going to adapt that to make it go better. Emily, what do you do extremely well?
Oh, I think I just being me, right? I like to be positive and I like to be upbeat. Mm-hmm. So I think if someone's insecure about their project, like I will tell them the good things about their project and, their fabric choices. I think that I like to do that. I like to talk to people. I love people. Talking to people and reassuring them on their project stuff. I'm not a salesperson, and it's nice I don't have to be a salesperson. So you just get to be me. I just get to be me. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah.
What do you not do so well?
Oh, manage my time. I'm really bad. I'm really bad at staying focused, Yeah. I don't do that well.
Okay. What about you would surprise people?
I don't know. People who know me, they know I'm a little bit off everything. They're like, oh, you took a job making a zebra skin rug. Oh, that makes sense, Emily. Of course you did that. Oh, you're going to make 10 awnings for a, house. Oh, sure. Have you done that before? No, that doesn't surprise me. Okay, Emily. I don't know. people who know me, they just think she'll do anything at least once.
Okay.
And yeah.
I think that's fantastic, by the way.
I just like to try new stuff. So yeah, maybe just once. Sales, making sales. That
Okay.
was, I think people would be like, but you live in you work in a condo. You don't even have a workroom. You're sewing sails for sailboats. That's cool. Once. And I learned that's not a good fit.
Not a good fit. I like that. Not a good fit. What do you love best about the teaching?
Oh, I mean, besides the kids jumping up and down when they see me.
That's a hard thing to beat. Besides that, yes.
Yeah. Then I'm teaching them something they will always have with them, like forever. This is not like that math equation they did one time or, some recess game. This is like forever. Most kids will probably remember that they could sew that. They could make that idea up in their head and they can create that all by themselves. They can draw a picture with a needle and thread. They can weave weave yarn to fabric. Like, I think those will stick with the kids. So I love that they will always have that. And that I told them in a really positive manner that they can do anything they want to with that stuff, like anything. So yeah, that I'm like, all these things. It's pretty great. Yeah.
What do you like least about it?
If I didn't catch their interest, right? So I know there's something that the kids liked. Yeah. So like maybe they didn't try it. They thought, maybe their friend told them, oh, we're going to go play this game at recess or at the outside in the playground instead of just sewing with Miss Emily. So I guess that kind of bums me out is like, if I didn't catch them, cause I have like a few minutes to like sell it.
Yeah.
If I didn't catch them, I'm like, what could I have said? Or, if I had like a Pokemon thing, maybe the guy would have stayed, but I mean, girls stay, but I do think there's some peer pressure there.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like that I maybe missed a kid.
Okay. I don't know that I would have ever considered that, but you're right. You have a limited window to catch their interest and make them choose what you're doing over other activities. Yeah. Okay. So that's a great success that so many of them do stay.
It is really good. Yeah, it is really good.
Emily, in what ways do you think you're resilient?
Probably that I usually see the bright side of things. So like in the case when I often cut yardage super close when I'm ordering it. It's just a thing I've done forever. And instead of being like, oh, Emily, you're so stupid. Why didn't you add it in their yard? Which I probably did add a yard. I still was short. Yeah. I'm like, oh, thank God they still have it. I can order it. Or like, oh, at least that wasn't like their precious grandmother's, fabric silk. Yeah. So I think the fact that I can usually bounce back pretty quick.
Yeah.
In a positive way. And my brain forgets things really fast. So that's nice. I get to forget those mistakes and be like, oh, I'm sure that'll never happen again.
I love that mindset. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's positive. I think a positive spin for me and for everybody. So it's good.
Okay. I won't remember this in 2 days. So that's great.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know you have a website. Where can people find you? Are you on Facebook as your business or Instagram? Do you have those set up?
Just Facebook and my website. Yeah.
Okay. I'll put links to those in the show notes.
Yeah. That's great.
So I could talk to you for another hour, but we both have things to do. So my final question is, what advice would you give to someone either new in this industry or someone who's been around for a while? And especially if they're thinking about teaching kids. Doesn't have to be about that, but with your experience, I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I'll go with the teaching kids part. I started actually teaching kids because at the workroom conference in 2000, was it? I guess it was 18. And we talked to other workrooms and they were saying, oh, no kids are sewing. No one's sewing these days. And I was like, are you guys teaching? Who's teaching? And nobody was teaching. And I was like, oh, okay. I can do that. And it wasn't like, it was a learning curve, but like, I didn't have any other qualifications besides knowing that it needed to be done.
Right.
And I mean, I knew the school, but I feel like any school would open their arms to somebody who is enthusiastic about showing kids how to sew. Like even in rural areas where you think people might still have grandparents that teach that, they may not be teaching the things the kids want to sew, So just do it. Just try it and start with small. Don't do 30 kids. Not a good
not the best way to get started.
But start small. And I would say doing groups is good though, because they do feed off each other.
Yeah.
Like people say, oh, I don't do private lessons. Well, no, don't do private because that is very one-on-one.
Yeah.
But the kids groups, they love it. They love, making things up, and you're not going to mess up. They're just so happy to have someone showing them something new they've never seen.
I love that. And I think the influence that you can have over them, as you said, your self-talk is gentle and positive. And if you're teaching them and allowing them to make mistakes and allowing things to go wrong and okay, how can we fix this? Or is this okay just the way it is? I think that's really a lifelong gift that you're giving to those kids. And I really admire that about you, Emily. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Emily. I have said many times our business models have similarities and differences. I love that she's incorporated teaching into not just her business, but she's made it part of her mission to make sure that young people are learning to sew. I also really, really love that her mindset is allowing them to do things their own way at their own speed and enjoying the process so that they continue to do it and that they are walking away with a life skill. I think that's fabulous. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing Emily's story today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.